general plumbing, water heaters, faucet fixture repair, underground sewer and water repairs, backflow testing, and more. Keep your property free from leaks and other issues. Call today for a free estimate, 402-560-6197. It's not just Lincoln, Waverly, and the surrounding area anymore. It's also Seward and Milford with no trip charges. Contact Select Plumbing to inquire at 402-560-6197.
Shopping for new flooring is different today. Getting your questions answered, making the right selection, getting the best value, and installed quickly and professionally. Visit ostreetcarpet.com or shop our store. We'll answer all your questions and help you make the right choice. You'll be enjoying your new floor in just days for less than you'd pay elsewhere. Carpet, vinyl, wood, laminate, tile, and area rugs. We've got it all.
O Street Carpet.
1732 O Street. Family owned and operated. Always the best value.
This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. Also online at theticketfm.com.
On the internet.
KNTK FM Firth, 93.7 The Ticket. This is Adam Carricker on The Ticket.
Position right of the quarterback, out of the shotgun, 1st and 20. Jailbreak screen in the air. It is tipped. It is intercepted by Carricker at the Missouri 21-yard line.
Live from the heart of Lincoln, America, 8-year NFL vet and All-American defensive lineman Adam Carricker.
Shotgun snap to Everett. He's got the left arm going, and now he's got a whole lot of Adam Carricker who rips him down inside the 25-yard line.
On 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Here's your host, Adam Carricker.
Welcome, everybody, into the Big Ten Show. I am your host, Adam Carricker. We got three major things we're going to talk about today. All right. Two of them college football related. Now, obviously, we're going to talk Big Ten, but if you haven't noticed, the Big Ten is now coast to coast. So I view it as a national conference, and it's probably going to expand maybe even a little more southern, maybe a little bit more southeastern in the future, potentially. Hint, hint, potentially. All right. And so I kind of just tend to talk about things Big Ten, but also just things national. So we're going to kick off the show today. The top 25 head coaches with the most pressure on them next season. Now, there's obviously several Big Ten coaches in this conversation, but we're going to go through the whole top 25. Okay, everybody on this list, at least briefly mention some names, go in depth with some more folks than others. But number one, may or may not surprise you, he has potentially the most talented team in the entire country this year. Potentially, it's either him or one other team. I'll get into that in a minute. Lots of terrible hints being dropped here. But he's a guy who's a Big Ten coach who has the hottest seat in America. It's not just about winning. It's about beating their rival, winning a conference title, and making a deep run, potentially having to win a national title, or his seat's going to get really, really hot because the expectations are really high for this program. They're really high for this coach because a lot of people feel like he landed on third base with the job to begin with. Okay, he has not beaten his rival recently, has not won a conference title, and now he's got one of the most talented teams, easily one of the two most talented teams in the entire country. Okay, so we'll talk about him plus the rest of the top 25 coaches under the most pressure with the hottest of hottest seats this year. All right, next, the Super League. There is a legit 80-team Super League. It's starting to be leaked out. Some people have seen it, I'm sure. But 8 divisions with 10 teams in each division, potential Super League that is starting to be legit talked about. Okay, so I got pros, I got cons, some of the things I want to chat about when it comes to that. And last, but certainly not least, Caitlin Clark, number 1 overall pick in the WNBA draft. I'm shocking you with this, I know. And she's going to get paid. But the amount that she's being paid is ridiculously low compared to the value that she is going to bring. Now, this is where a lot of the WNBA players that are currently in the league from the past that have been burying her, okay, they're entitled to their opinion, as am I. My opinion is she is going to help everybody over time make so much more money than they ever have. They need to stop burying her. They need to start appreciating what she's going to bring to this league, which is eyeballs, which is attention, which is ratings, which is revenue, which is why she's being paid so little compared to the value she's going to bring. And eventually, hopefully, high tide raises all ships and everyone in the WNBA starts to make a lot more money because of the eyeballs she brings. So instead of the hate that she is receiving, whether you like her on-court antics or not, whether you think she's as good as people think that say that she is or not, I do. I think she is, but I digress. Whether you think so or not, it's undeniable the eyeball she's going to bring, which is going to put so much more money in everybody's pocket than the WNBA has ever done, along with Angel Reese, who actually has about 1 million more, I think, Twitter or social media followers than Caitlin Clark does. Those two specifically, and there's other women and ladies that are coming into the WNBA. They're going to help the league make a whole lot more money. But those two ladies in particular are going to help the WNBA make so much more money than they ever have. So instead of the hate she's getting, and we're going to talk about kind of how ridiculously low the pay is that she's going to get. She's made over $3 million in NIL to this point. She's not even going to make 6 figures next year. And I know first world problems, right? But it's about the value that you bring. You should be fairly compensated for that. And she's not. Those are the 3 topics. All right. Before we dive into it, before we light this candle, before we have a little bit of fun, make sure you check out our good friends at the Jacobson Seed Company. JacobsonSeed.com. They are your healthy hybrid advantage. I've gotten to know these fine folks just a smidge. All right. And they're good people who want to do things the right way, want to conduct business the right way. These are the people that I like to surround myself with. Okay. And so they offer a great product. They just want to do a great job. They are your healthy hybrid advantage. We don't just offer you, hopefully, great Big Ten coverage, hopefully great national sports coverage here on the Big Ten show. But we offer you farmers, okay, the backbone of Middle America, a great option when it comes to your seed needs. Supplies, JacobsonSeed.com. All right. First topic. We're going to start from 25 and move on down to 1. And I'm going to go quicker through some than others. The top 25 head coaches with the most pressure next season. At number 25 is Gus Malzahn of UCF. I did some really good things at Auburn. Not enough because he's not there anymore. Okay, UCF, all the new Big 12 teams had horrible records in conference. BYU, Cincinnati, Houston, UCF, they all struggled mightily their first year in the Big 12 conference. And as we know, the Big 12 is not the most difficult conference under God's hot sun. Now, Texas and Oklahoma, while they're gone this year, they were there last year. But UCF is one of those programs, expectations were raised. Gus Malzahn needs to do better starting in conference to relieve some of that pressure. All right, number 24, Vanderbilt coach Clark Lee. Vanderbilt's been pretty bad lately. Just try to get to a bowl game. Nobody cares about bowl games, but just try to get to one. Number 23, Matt Campbell. This is interesting. A guy that was highly sought after just a few years ago. I guarantee he had many job offers from other programs around the country, was doing really well at Iowa State. It's not like he's doing bad. But it's not been the same the past 3 years as it was the first 3 years. Okay? Not going to New Year's 6 bowl games, not contending for conference titles, not winning 9-10 games. They have not been the same. And the longer a coach is at a place, the more it's about what he does. The more success or lack thereof you have early on, it may or may not be as much about you. Now, he obviously was doing some things right to begin with. And Iowa State does not have that history of having that success. So it must have been something he was doing. But here's what happened. Other teams have adjusted to his 3-3-5 defense. They've adjusted to his multiple tight end offense. Okay, he also does not have a guy named Purdy as his quarterback anymore either. He needs to readjust or his seat's going to get a little bit warmer. Still a good football coach, but he's got to readjust. Now, this next one's a little bit interesting. Okay, number 22, BYU head coach, Kalani Sitake. This guy's actually had good success. This is a guy who may be a victim of his own success. He's beaten some Power 5 teams when BYU was an independent for a long time, or quite a few years. And now they struggled in the Big 12 last year, as did all the other newcomers. And now he's almost a little bit of a victim of his own success because the expectations have been raised. BYU is a great football program. Okay. I know they're viewed differently because they've only technically been a Power 5, 4, 3, whatever you want to call it, power conference team for a year. But they have a national title to their name. 1984. Okay, they beat Michigan in the Holiday Bowl to win a national title. This is a storied program. They've got some great players in their history. Steve Young, Jim McMahon. Okay, things of that nature. About said Vince McMahon. Don't go down that rabbit hole. This is a guy I think is a little bit of a victim of his own success. It's kind of one of those things, kind of like Gus Malzahn. Win a few more games in the Big 12. It's going to be a crazy conference. The Big 12 is going to be an insane conference. It is not one of the top 2 conferences in America, not one of the 2 best, but I think it's going to maybe, I even heard someone talk about this. Is it going to be America's conference because it's going to be so even? It's going to be so high scoring. It's going to be entertaining. Almost a little bit of that underdog feel to it. The Big 12 conference is wide open. Big 10, probably not so much. I mean, you can argue it's a 4-team race. You know, Ohio State, Oregon, Michigan, Penn State. If we're being honest, if you watch Drew Aller in Penn State's spring game last weekend, did not look great. And that's putting it very kindly because I like the guy and he's uber talented, but my Lord, he struggled a lot. Penn State couldn't throw the ball last year. Tried to get him some weapons at the wide receiver spot. Doesn't look good so far. I don't know how serious you can take Penn State if they can't execute this thing known as the forward pass. They're going to run the ball. They got talented running backs, great defense again. It's going to come down to can they execute the forward pass just a little to a whole lot better. Michigan, they have the second most amount of players leaving in the entire conference. Now they got Jerome Moore coming back. He knows how to be the head coach there. Obviously, Harbaugh's gone. So it's hard to imagine Michigan, when you look at them and Penn State right now, and obviously if they play Oregon, they play Ohio State, anybody can beat anybody on any given day. These are college kids, 18 to 20, well, 5-year-old kids because of the COVID season, but you get my point. These are not quite grown men yet. So anything can happen on any given day. But I think it's a 2-horse race in the Big Ten. It's Ohio State, Oregon. That's what it realistically is. Okay, in the SEC, it's a little bit more wide open with all the question marks at Alabama. But it starts with Georgia each and every year. Texas is now in that conversation, and maybe Alabama. It's really a 3-horse race, probably. If LSU can play any sort of defense, they might be in that conversation, but they got to replace a Heisman winner at quarterback. All right. The Big 12, it's wide open. Wide open. You've got Arizona. You've got Utah. Colorado, who knows what to expect out of them? They're going to score, but are they going to play any defense? They could be that team that goes 4-8 again, or they could be that team that goes 9-3, especially in the Big 12. Okay, Kansas State, Kansas, I got them as a preseason ranked team. There's all sorts of teams that could win the Big 12. My point is simply this. Win more games within the conference, BYU. Take some heat off your head coach, and the Big 12 is going to be a fun conference to watch. PJ Fleck at Minnesota, number 21. Okay. I think if Minnesota doesn't eventually kind of take the next step, I think Minnesota fans are kind of taking for granted what they have. Maybe they've grown tired of row the boat. Possibly. But they're a solid program every year. I think what I hear from Minnesota fans, which is why he's on this list. I did not have him on this list. He's on this list because of what I hear, the rumblings that I hear. I think he's being taken for granted a little bit. Get a big win or two this season, and I think he will be way off this list next year.
Liberty Law Group is committed to the defense of liberty for those accused and the pursuit of justice for those injured. Liberty Law Group's relentless trial attorneys specialize in criminal defense and personal injury law. We believe in treating every client with respect, compassion, and understanding. We know that navigating the legal system is stressful and overwhelming, but Liberty Law Group will carry that burden for you. When you're facing legal issues, make the right call. 877-42-LIBERTY. That's 877-42-LIBERTY.
Hi, Sean Callahan here for Coppell Chevrolet GMC, and our annual spring sales event is now underway. We have absolutely huge savings right now at Coppell. New Sierras and new Silverados have a double whammy. Choose from APR starting at 1.9% or discounts over $9,000. Yes, that's right, 1.9% APR or discounts of over $9,000. So please take that short money-saving drive down 144th Street just south of the interstate, or check us out online at CoppellCars.com. You'll be glad you did. All deals with approved credit.
At Union Bank, people don't have your money. Your money has people. First, home people, investment people, people who answer the phone and your chats, dream car people, dream retirement people, driving your dream car in your dream retirement people, small business people, credit card people, and all the other people you need. At Union Bank, our people help you do more than you dreamed possible. So stop in and say hello. We can't wait to see you. Union Bank and Trust. Member FDIC.
Go Hog Wild Pit Barbecue. If the week's been too hectic to even think about dinner, or your family can't handle one more night of leftovers, then it's time to let Hog Wild do the cooking. Hog Wild's family packs are one heck of a good deal for a complete barbecue meal loaded with all the smoked meats, tasty sides, buns, and sauces you need to feed your family. Order online at GoHogWild.com. Hog Wild Pit Barbecue, 3210 Cornhusker Highway in Lincoln.
But don't be late, we close at 8.
93.7 The Ticket is proud to provide listeners with daily opportunities to win contests and prizes on our airwaves, and would like to take this opportunity to remind you of a couple rules. All participants must be 21 or older and must wait 30 days after winning a prize before participating in another contest. Once you win, you have 30 days to pick up your prize at the K&TK Studios, 1040 O Street in Lincoln, or your prize will be forfeit. Thank you for participating in our contest, and thank you for listening to 93.7 The Ticket.
Nutrition Authority invites you to save 35 to 75% off at the Spring Mega Sale. We're taking our better than internet prices and cutting them even deeper, bringing you the biggest sale of the season. Monday, April 15th through Saturday, April 20th, the Spring Mega Sale is on at Nutrition Authority. For location information, check us out at mynutritionauthority.com.
93.7 The Ticket, Fox, KFXL weather. Sponsored by John Henry's Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning.
Your Lincoln forecast for today, we'll see a chance of showers this morning, then partly sunny skies this afternoon. It will be breezy too, with the high around 58. Tonight we'll see increasing clouds and a low around 35. And tomorrow mainly cloudy skies expected with an afternoon high around 59. I'm meteorologist Kyle Klecker for 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Plains Cover Crop is your one-stop seed shop. Call us now for spring and summer forages, CRP mixes, and fall cover crop blends. We do farm-specific consulting for practical and efficient seed blends to fit your geography and goals. With a very diverse inventory, we will tailor a blend just for you. We're also looking for contract growers, and we buy and sell rye. Find us online at plainscovercrop.com. Timeless agronomy practices paired with modern technology. East Highway 20 in Orchard and across Nebraska.
Spring sports are here and it's time to upgrade your equipment. But don't go rushing to your big box store. Play It Again Sports is your place to go for all spring sports equipment for baseball, softball, golf, and disc golf. Play It Again Sports has quality, slightly to gently used equipment, and 50% of their inventory is actually new equipment. And don't forget, buying from them is a great way to get new products with great discounts by also bringing in your used items for store credit or cash on the spot. Play It Again Sports at 48th and Vine.
Hey, Husker Nation, Matt Davison here with 1890. It's an exciting time to be a Husker fan, and to keep that momentum going, we need your help. Nebraska has always been a leader in college athletics, and we're doing the same through name, image, and likeness. NIL is a unique opportunity for every Husker fan to have a direct impact on the success of our programs. Through 1890, 100% of your contribution goes to the student athletes. So go to 1890nebraska.com, choose your sport, become a member, and help the Huskers recruit and retain the best. Go Big Red.
If you're a homeowner or a business owner, you have a lot of projects, and no one has an unlimited budget or time. Sunbelt Rentals makes all jobs less stressful with no need to purchase large equipment or hire a crew. You can do it yourself with rentals and everything from aerators and power rakes for spring yard work to stump grinders, concrete mixers, tile saws, and more. Check out their inventory in Lincoln, north of Cornhusker Highway on 56th Street, or online at sunbeltrentals.com.
Sandhills Global is hiring. With their fast-paced, growing culture, they have hundreds of new openings in sales, marketing, traveling support, software development, web design, and more. Full-time roles offer a 4.5-day work week, along with flexible internships in most areas. Career and internship opportunities are available at our global headquarters in Lincoln, Nebraska. Find your fit today at www.sandhills.jobs.
The captain, Vershawn Jackson.
Mike Minner, what's up, bro?
When you look at Dylan, you're looking at quarterbacks that kind of come around once every 20 years. And this is a kid I'm looking at, I don't know how old he is, 17, 18 years old. And he is already directing things that a 17, 18-year-old kid should not even know. Changing the line protection. Okay, guys, I don't know where we've been 2 weeks of practice. Come on, man. Well, we got guys in the National Football League that can't do that.
You're listening to Adam Carricker on The Ticket on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Deion Sanders at 20. Now, this is funny because is it very realistic for Deion to go anywhere after this year, barring just like an 0-12 collapse? No, not really. Not of his own volition. He's on this list because he is so polarizing. Now, as long as they win more than 4 games, they went from 1 win a couple of years ago to 4 last year. If he just gets them to a bowl game this year, how can anybody in Colorado complain? It's because he's so polarizing. What they have, half a dozen players leave, enter the transfer portal the first day the transfer portal was open. I believe the most of any team in America. It's because he's so polarizing in a good way. And sometimes in some people's eyes, not in a good way, that he's on this list because you never know what can happen when the reactions to everything that you do, which is, that's how Deion is. It's somewhat self-inflicted too. It's somewhat self-intended, honest. We're being honest. And if you're a Colorado fan, you got to love that you're getting all this notoriety. But he's on this list because if you're this polarizing, any little thing could potentially blow up. And I'm not wishing that on him. I hope Deion does great things because he's good for college football. All right, number 19, Lane Kiffin. This is a lot due to the fact that they have a great transfer portal class. And if they don't end up a top 10, top 5 team, some of these coaches are on here due to expectations. If they don't have a top 10, top 5 team, fans could start to get anxious. Right now, it's almost asinine to have his name on this list, but he has a history. And I know it didn't go great at the Raiders, and it didn't go great at Tennessee, and it didn't go great at USC, and he's actually doing well at Ole Miss. And at Florida, I think it was Atlantic, he actually did pretty good. But he has a history of not quite living up to expectations when expectations are high. And expectations are high at Ole Miss this year for a reason. Well, they bring in the number 1 transfer portal linebacker, number 1 transfer portal edge rusher, a couple other players that are number 1 at their position in the transfer portal. Expectations are high. So if they don't finish top 5, top 10 at the worst, that's why he's on this list. Next name. Brent Pry, Virginia Tech head coach. Virginia Tech hasn't been Virginia Tech since they lost Frank Beamer. Not even close. I don't think I need to explain why he's on this list. Luke Fickell at Wisconsin. You know, it's interesting. I think people have really high expectations for Luke Fickell. Going 6-6, 7-5 isn't what they're looking for. They got rid of their last head coach who won 6, 7, 8, 9 games a year. A lot of coaches on this list are due to expectations. And if you're an SEC and a Big Ten coach at a big name school, you're going to get fired if you're not winning 8 to 10 games. I'm not saying Luke Fickell's going to get fired. I'd be surprised. He just got hired, and he was one of the hottest coaches when he was hired. Probably the 2 biggest names that year that were hired were Matt Rule and Luke Fickell. I'm just saying, he's low on this list now. If they don't start to be able to throw the ball more effectively, which is what they want to do, and it's only his 2nd year. So to be clear, he's low on this list for that reason. But Wisconsin fans are looking for more. And if they don't get it, his seat could get pretty warm. All right. So it's interesting. The next name on the list is Matt Rule. And my buddy convinced me to put this name on here. I'll be honest with you. It was not my opinion to put him on here. I don't think he should be on here. not because I'm trying to be a homer, but because you can see what he's doing into year 2. I fully expect Nebraska to be a lot better. So I'm going to throw my buddy Trent straight under the bus for his name even being on here. I guess I did listen, so that's on me. It's kind of more of giving the people what they want approach. I really don't think Matt Rule's seat is that warm. I think people actually are like, we want Matt to stay, especially with what happened with Trev Alberts just leaving. And so I will throw myself under the bus for giving in to peer pressure. And yeah, we're going to move on. All right, Dave Aranda. This is a guy who was a potentially hot hire a few years ago. Had Baylor rolling, had him doing some great things. And since then, they have struggled. It's not been the same. Okay. So this is a guy whose seat is definitely getting warm. Okay. Sharon Moore is on this list. Year 1 of being the head coach, but this is purely due to the level of expectations that Michigan's fans have recently or have now because of recent success. I think Sharon Moore is going to do good. I do think this year is going to be a challenge. They have a difficult schedule. Talked about that a million times. They have a lot of players who've gone. The head coach is gone. The strength coach is gone. The quarterback is gone. The entire offensive line is gone. Your top 6 O-linemen are going to the NFL. So your top 5 starters and your top sub. Okay. They do have Donovan Edwards at running back, but they still lost their top running back from a year ago. I think I'm curious to see how Alabama fans react to Kalen DeBoer and where are their expectations. And same with Michigan fans. Where are their level of expectations? Are they realistic or not? I think Sharon Moore is a good coach. I think he's going to do good things at Michigan. A lot of these names are on here because you're in the Big Ten, the SEC, expectations are higher. You're a big name brand, expectations are higher. And Michigan has just won 3 straight Big Ten titles, beat their biggest rival 3 straight times. Something that almost seemed impossible to Wolverine fans, beating Ohio State. Now is almost taken for granted. And if you don't do it, it's a big deal. Oh, by the way, they just won a national title. So James Franklin at 13. This is a guy who's had success at Penn State. But their offense, as I mentioned earlier, was anemic last year. And if it is not better, hiring Kansas's offensive coordinator isn't going to save your job. They play good defense. They run the ball. They're a fairly well-coached team. But if you can't score and you're playing ugly offensive football, that's why he's on this list. You know, it's interesting. Some of these next names that are coming up. Dabo Swinney, it's almost funny to see his name on this list. Okay. I don't think I know. But he's on the list. He's on the list because of his resistance to adjust to the times of college football. The NIL, the transfer portal. He's clearly resistant. He's clearly bucking it. Clemson's still a good football program. But when you play for national titles, win ACC titles so much you take them for granted, and then you win national titles and you beat Alabama and you do those things, and then you clearly aren't what you once were, it's because your head coach doesn't seem to want to adjust to what everybody else has already accepted. That's going to put you on the hot seat because it limits your future potential. If people don't see a brighter future because you won't adjust, that's why his name is on this hot seat, even though he's one of the best coaches in the recent modern era. All right, next up, Kalen DeBoer. And, you know, this is purely like a Sharon Moore type deal. It's purely a expectations. I think no fan base in America has higher expectations than Alabama. How do you follow up arguably the greatest coach of all time? There's maybe 3 people that would be in the debate for greatest coach of all time, and Nick Saban's one of them. So I remember watching a video. Oh man, what year was it? Alabama went like 11-2, lost in their bowl game. I think it was the year they got upset in the Sugar Bowl by Oklahoma. This might have been 10 years ago. And an Alabama fan went online. This is an Alabama team that I believe finished top 10. And he just threw the biggest hissy fit, and Saban needed to be fired. And I know it's one example, but I did see a few others that weren't as bad, but they were similar. The expectations are just so high at Alabama, even like exponentially higher than Michigan. I just don't know that they're going to be fair to Kalen DeBoer. I think Michigan fans will actually be more fair and patient to Sharon Moore because he's one of their guys. Kalen DeBoer may be seen as an outsider. I don't know, by Alabama fans. But when all those players left after Kalen got hired, that wasn't a great sign, in my opinion. Now, to be clear, I think Kalen was about the best hire they could have had, in my opinion. This isn't how well I think coaches are going to do. This is how warm is their seat based on fan base expectations. I think Kalen was the best person they could have hired. I think he wins everywhere he goes. If he can recruit anywhere near as well as Saban, which I don't know why he wouldn't be able to with a brand like Alabama, I think he's going to do really, really good things. All right, Cincinnati. Scott Satterfield. Now this is a Luke Fickell problem. Luke Fickell created such high expectations at Cincinnati, and they have not been the same team since. And then you go to the Big 12 and you struggle like they did. That's why his name's on this list. Mack Brown is an interesting one. They tend to start off hot and then they fizzle at the end. Fans tend to not like that. Personally, I'm a big fan of Mack Brown. What he did at Texas, you could argue he brought in more talent, and he won a lot of games, won a national title, arguably the greatest college football game of all time, definitely in the top 3 to 5 in that Rose Bowl versus USC. 2005 season, 2005 national champs. Vish Young put on a show. I think North Carolina fans, I just kind of went to a few of their message boards for like 5 minutes. I think they like Mac. I think they like how he's recruited. I think they like how North Carolina teams start off the year. They're frustrated with how they finished, though, especially last year. They did not finish well at all. And I think they respect Mac for his tenure, his experience over time. But I do think some people hold his age against him a little bit, which I find a little crazy. All right, next on the list, Pat Narduzzi. I mean, Pitt just won an ACC title a couple of years ago. Did really well. Hasn't been the same since. All right, Sam Pittman at number 7, Arkansas. This is a team that coach that 2 years ago was being heralded for doing so well right out the gate, and they had a really tough schedule and hasn't been the same since. Again, got to try to not just replicate that early success, but actually get better. If your teams look like worse than they did a couple of years ago, that's a bad sign. Right now, that's where he's at. And there are other coaches, I've kind of hinted at it, but other coaches on this list are in that same boat, because even though they had success at one point, if your teams don't look the same and the future doesn't look like it's going to get back to where it once was or even improve from where you currently are, fans don't like that. Lincoln Riley at USC. And I do have him this high on this list, and I will tell you why. You're going into year 3, and you've readily admitted that you have to start over, and it's basically year 1. Why I don't have him in the top 5 is beyond me. All right, Hugh Freeze at Auburn. Yeah. This may have been the one that if I could redo the list, I would drop significantly. I think he's actually going to do really good things at Auburn. I think Auburn just happens to be in the same state as Alabama, and Auburn fans really, really want to be Alabama. And I think that's the biggest thing he has going against him. I actually think he's going to do really good things at Auburn. They've got some freshman studs. I think they're going to struggle this year. That's why I do have him on this list as high as I do. I think they're going to struggle. When you have as many freshman studs as you do at Auburn, as they do right now, the future is bright. But when you have to play them before they're ready, which he has readily admitted that they're going to have to do, I hope Auburn fans can give them a couple years and realize that they're the one team that can beat Alabama on a consistent basis. Nobody else can. Not even Georgia. Georgia's only done it once. Think about that. They've only beaten Alabama once. Even the year they won the national title, they lost to Bama earlier that year. And if Alabama's top 2 wide receivers aren't out in that national title game, I don't think Georgia beats them then. It's all due respect to Georgia. Probably the top program in the country right now, if you ask most people. But Auburn has a better win-loss record versus Alabama. But I think it's going to be a rough go this year. All right. Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame is an interesting one because I think he's actually liked. I think the expectations, because people like him so much, versus the results. And they're not bad results. Notre Dame's done fairly well. I think if they win that Ohio State game, or if they just lose with 11 men on the field, because losing with 10 men on the field, giving up the game-winning touchdown like they did on defense, and not calling a timeout to get the 11th guy out there, I think that hurts him. But personally, I'm a big fan of Marcus Freeman. I think Notre Dame fans really like him. But I think little things like that kind of hurt him just a smidge. All right, Mario Cristobal. This is a guy who's recruited at a high level and has not gotten the results. That's that simple. I think he's a good football coach. He is recruited at an elite level. He has not gotten the results. It's that simple. You got to win more football games. Number 2, Billy Napier. I mean, Florida's basically falling apart. If I'm being honest, they're basically falling apart. He needs a big year or he's gone. I mean, it is that simple, and rightfully so. All right, number 1 on this list. Again, a lot of these are due to fan expectations. A lot of these are due to if you had success 2 or 3 years ago, where are you at now? Do we see a potential future? Well, Ohio State's had good success. Ohio State's got a bright future. But when you haven't beaten Michigan and you haven't won a Big Ten title, and yes, you were one successful fake punt away or one field goal away from beating Georgia and probably stomping a mud hole in TCU and win a national title, all that's very fair. But the fact is, almost isn't what Ohio State fans are looking for. The expectations for Ohio State are so high this year, and rightfully so. Ryan Day has earned the right for there to be high expectations. That is a compliment. Talented recruiting class year after year. Insane transfer portal class. Experienced guys with success. Has created a level of expectation. It's the feeling I get. Like, he'd better be in that national championship game. They better beat Michigan. They better win the Big Ten title. They better be in the national championship game. Anything less than that, I'm not saying, he's going to get fired, but it's going to be considered a disappointment, and he'll be number 1 on this list again next year. And if he doesn't at least do what I just described, it doesn't help that most people at Ohio State consider him a coach who was landed and started out on third base after taking over for Urban Meyer. I think Ryan Day is a great coach. He's got to find a way to win one of those big games. His best accomplishment to date is almost beating Georgia in the college football playoff a couple years ago. That's not how Ohio State fans view things. I have Ohio State and Georgia right now way too early in the national championship game. I guarantee if Ohio State is not in the national championship game, beat Michigan, win the Big Ten title, Ohio State fans will deem this season a failure. That's just how it is.
Spring often marks the beginning of severe weather, which can lead to power outages. LES wants you to be prepared before the storm. Restock your emergency kit, update your info with LES, and if you encounter an outage, report it at les.com/report.
Problem gambling affects millions of Americans daily, of all ages and walks of life. If your loved one is struggling with addiction, contact Choices Treatment Center's 24-hour helpline at 402-476-2300. That's 402-476-2300.
Hi, this is State Senator Carolyn Bosn. Education is a cornerstone to building a strong, vibrant community. I voted for the historic increase in funding for education in the legislature. As a state senator, wife, and mom, I believe Lincoln is a great place to work and raise a family. My husband Reggie and I are local business owners and understand the valuable role of education in our community. This is Carolyn Bosn, and I am asking for your vote on May 14th, paid for by Bosn for Legislature.
Ironhide Construction is hiring. They're looking for hardworking, self-motivated individuals who are team players. Ironhide Construction has openings for an experienced project manager, estimator, apprentice, skilled laborer, and erector or installer. They will train the right people and make sure you understand the position and requirements. At Ironhide Construction, it's own it, be honest, and do it right. Apply today and learn more about their other benefits at ironhideconstruction.com, where they're committed to you every step of the way.
The Mill Coffee and Tea, formerly with only 4 Lincoln locations. Guess what?
What?
There's 5 Lincoln locations now. Oh my gosh. That's 25% more Lincoln locations than there used to be. Can you even imagine a world where there's only 4 Lincoln Mill locations? Feels like ages ago. We were all so young then. The Mill on 11th, located right alongside 93.7 The Ticket Studios, 1040 O Street.
Attention all Wings fans. 89-cent wings are back on Tuesdays at Buffalo Wings and Rings in Lincoln. Enjoy the best wings in town for boneless or traditional at a price that makes the whole family happy. And now at the Williamsburg Village Wings and Rings, you can enjoy $1.50 tall boys in Bud Light, Coors Light, Busch Light, and Michelob Ultra every day after 7 p.m. and all day on Sundays. Get to Wings and Rings today and make sure to stop by on Tuesdays for 89-cent wings.
Spring Sports are here and it's time to upgrade your equipment. But don't go rushing to your big box store. Play It Again Sports is your place to go for all spring sports equipment for baseball, softball, golf, and disc golf. Play It Again Sports has quality, slightly to gently used equipment, and 50% of their inventory is actually new equipment. And don't forget, buying from them is a great way to get new products with great discounts by also bringing in your used items for store credit or cash on the spot. Play It Again Sports at 48th and Vine.
For over 15 years, Integrated Life Choices has empowered individuals with disabilities in Lincoln and throughout Nebraska. They provide comprehensive services from group homes and independent living services to job training, ensuring fulfilling lives for those that they serve. Now, they're inviting you to join their mission. If you're passionate about making a difference in the lives of people with developmental disabilities, explore rewarding career opportunities with them. Learn more about their services and apply today at www.ilc.net. Be a part of Integrated Life Choices, where your work truly changes lives.
Finally, a good reason to have a smart house. Just say, Alexa, play 93.7 The Ticket, and we'll magically start playing. How's it work? Nobody knows. Don't ask questions.
What do you think of when you hear the chocolate season? Artisan chocolates? Of course, they have the best chocolates this side of the Atlantic. Friendly neighborhood coffee shop? Yup, they're that too. A nationally recognized top-tier brunch spot. Waffle weekends, baby. And the place to grab a gift for literally any occasion? Everybody loves chocolate. See for yourself at the Chocolate Season, 40th and Old Cheney, or order ahead online at thechocolateseason.com.
Spring is a time of new beginnings and trying new things. If you haven't tried Fuhrer's cheese spread yet, the time is now. For parties for St. Patrick's Day and Easter, or celebrating the NCAA tournament with friends, there's no better dip to bring everyone together and celebrate something from Nebraska. Get to your local grocery store today and load up on Fuhrer's cheese spread. No event or party is complete without it on your table.
In every office, there's two types of people. There are those who bring in bagels and those who eat the bagels that someone else brought in. Everybody likes the first person. Be that first person. Weekday mornings at 7:30, you have a chance to win a business box of bagels from Bagels & Joe. All you have to do is shut up, Sipple. 2 questions for you, 2 for Sip. Win, and the bagels are yours. Lose, well, you don't want to lose.
You lost Monday, you lost Wednesday, you're a loser.
Shut up, Sipple. Weekday mornings at 7:30, brought to you by Bagels & Joe. You're listening to Adam Carriker on The Ticket on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
A college football Super League proposal has merit, but significant obstacles remain in restructuring. You've got the Big Ten over here with their media rights deal, the SEC over here with their media rights deal, the ACC, who knows what's going on there because their media rights deal goes out to 2036, or the ESPN really has all the leverage and they can pull the plug after 2027. And then guess what they're going to do? Hey, Florida State, North Carolina, Clemson, NC State, because apparently you have to go wherever North Carolina goes. Come on over to the SEC. Why? Because we own their media rights too. Don't go to the Big Ten and Fox. Don't do that. Come over here. All right. The idea of creating a Super League format in college football is doable. I don't know whether you'll like it or not, but it's potentially brilliant, or potentially around the year 2031. Okay, that's right in the time frame where most current media rights contracts for major conferences in the college football playoff will be expiring. All right. It's called, I'm going to try to pronounce this right, quarter minus. I think I said that right, which is derived from the Latin word for sharing a common boundary. All right, it would be a perfect time to restructure college football to where the sport is owned by the schools and their media rights partners. Now is just not even close to the right time to implement those at this moment in time, but then could be the perfect time. Now, when you think about the NFL and you think about former NFL Commissioner Pete Rozelle, he successfully lobbied his teams to share revenue equally under what was called a single entity structure, a model which has survived into today while withstanding even Supreme Court challenges. You got Florida State suing the ACC. You got Clemson suing the ACC. Strong rumors North Carolina is going to do it as well. All this stuff that's happening in court, let's be honest, college football's the new NFL. And that's what it's going to become the longer time goes on. This model that the NFL and Pete Rozelle implemented back in the day, this single entity structure, has withstood Supreme Court challenges. All right, with college sports strapped to a rocket heading toward an uncertain future, the 20 people involved in the venture dubbed College Sports Tomorrow are girding for what seems to be a showdown against a future trying to be created by the Big Ten and SEC. They have all the leverage. All right. And I quote, "I do not believe that leaving it just to commissioners and athletic directors is the way to go. Because when you do not get the view of the university as a whole." End quote. That's West Virginia president and CST member Gordon Lee. Okay, when he was talking to CBS Sports earlier this week. I think the university, and I quote, "I think the university presidents have been the root of the problem here," end quote, he said. Now, this is a university president talking himself about university presidents. And I quote, "We have ignored, we have not been engaged, we have not paid enough attention. And I am the poster child because I paid a lot of these coaches millions of dollars. We just thought life was going to go on. We should have been thinking more progressively for a long period of time. My view is to stimulate the conversation, get enough university presidents together is how you solve this problem," end quote. Basically, instead of everybody thinking about themselves and thinking about one little piece to the puzzle, you got to get everybody together and put that whole puzzle together collectively. Now, when college football commissioners were unable to agree on a 12-team playoff model past just the next couple years, okay, it took the CFP Board of Managers, specifically Mississippi State President Mark Keenum, to get it done. Now, we do have a 12-team playoff for the next couple years. Beyond that, we know it's going to 14 teams. But it took Mark Keenum stepping in to actually get it done because people everyone lives in their own little bubble. I have my bubble. You have your bubble. Everyone has their own little bubble. I shouldn't say little. That sounds demeaning. I just mean everyone kind of has their own area or world that they live in. Some people's worlds or bubbles are bigger than others. Some are smaller. It just is what it is. It's not good or bad. It's just a fact. Like I said, I have my bubble. I have my world that I live in. I can't live in the whole world. It's impossible. Everyone tends to focus on what is best for them in their bubble, their world. And then it doesn't work when you try to work together with other people if that's your focus. College sports is at a point where the money is about to run out. When that happens, now this is not necessarily per college football. The millions of dollars and the billions that these things are valued at. When you start to think about some of the other sports that were in trouble, especially during COVID, they're kind of talking about everything collectively. Okay. When that happens, the stakeholders always find a way to get more. The schedule moved to 12 games, and this is also talking about the past more than the present, as far as when there was some money questions. Okay, when that happens, the stakeholders always find a way to get more. The schedule moved to 12 regular season games in 2006. Remember, it used to be 11 my entire childhood. Games were played on Friday night. Don't forget the college football playoff in its riches is only a decade old. Now schools are preparing for what might be an 8-figure budget hit in upcoming legal settlements. You got to keep that in mind. There's a lot of legal disputes, and that ain't cheap, ladies and gentlemen. That may lead to hard decisions on whether to cut other sports within the athletic department. Nobody wants that, least of all me. College football itself is also undervalued. I've thought that for years. The number one product on television is the NFL. The NFL is making double digits in billions of dollars every year. Number two is college football. By far and away, number one is the NFL. And I'm not just talking sports. I'm talking Earth. Of everything on TV on planet Earth, it's number one NFL, number two college football, and they're by far away. the two most watched sports, but only one is maximizing their revenue, and that's the NFL, which is why we see, and let's be honest, people just want to make money. Some people are just greedy, but it's also why we're starting to see people trying to make more money in college football. All right. College football itself is also undervalued, at least in terms of what it could be as the nation's second most popular sport. One CST member projected an annual revenue of a potential Super League at between $3 billion and $16 billion annually. Think about that. Now we're talking NFL money. At its core, a Super League would cause a de facto alteration of the Big Ten and SEC, among others, dividing the game at the top into 10 7-league teams, or as I mentioned earlier, there's been a few things proposed. If you have 80 teams, 8 10-team divisions. It would require the Big Ten and SEC's powerful commissioners, Tony Petitti and Greg Sankey, respectively, to at least consider relinquishing some of their power if college football was to be overseen by an overarching commissioner and a board of directors. That's a deal breaker before the first meeting ever even happens. Also, the new college football playoff contract wouldn't have been agreed to last month if a Super League was on the table. In other words, and really they didn't agree to how the playoffs going to be formatted. Really all they got agreed and figured out was there's going to be 14 teams and who's going to make the money. Who gets the buys, automatic qualifier. None of that was figured out. Just FYI. It was about the money. But it wouldn't have been agreed to if a Super League was on the table, because that's where we're eventually going one day, and that's where the real money is. Unsurprisingly, the Big Ten and SEC have yet to take a meeting with the CST. That doesn't mean it's impossible. Any structure can be altered. Anyone can be bought out. Just think about what the bowls used to be and how much that's changed. This is a discussion being had, and it's not like the commissioners have all the answers. One Power 4 administrator, when asked about a Super League, said we have to keep an open mind. That's not just about potential Super League, but also about the future of college sports as a whole, and that matters to me a lot. All right, and I quote, people have talked for years about the possibility of creating a separate structure of the schools. End quote, NCAA President Charlie Baker said this week. And I quote, it's probably a decision that should be made by them and not the NCAA, end quote. Well, hallelujah. The NCAA is useless. All right. Based on the conversation, revenue generated from a Super League would help fund the minor sports at risk. The money would account for compensating players in some fashion, a single entity with which to negotiate given players with or without a union, an easier route to collectively bargain. And I quote, what I've heard both sides say is if you aggregate it, the value is going to go up and it's going to be more value for the networks, end quote, said one CST member. And I quote, we all know a monopoly is more valuable than not. That's why we don't allow it. You'd have to get a congressional exemption for such a league. Show them you've got enough money to pay for everything, end quote. It's not that easy, of course. When hearing of the Super League proposal, one TV executive had an observation. The schools of the two leaders involved in this in Denver, West Virginia, okay, and Syracuse, all right, might be left out. Their two leaders and presidents are heavily involved in this, and they may not even be included. The ACC doesn't even want West Virginia. You ever noticed West Virginia is in a conference that makes no geographic sense? And even though the ACC is hurting, you've never once heard rumors of West Virginia going to the ACC. What happened? What happened? Why do they hate the West Virginia so much? That's a pretty good football program, basketball program, passionate fans. I'd like to know what happened. Okay. And I quote, I know we all say we don't have any money, end quotes a North Carolina athletic director and CSP member, Bubba Cunningham. And I quote, I look at Stanford. When COVID hit, they dropped 11 sports. They brought them back. But when money gets tight, you're not looking at taking money from football and basketball. If we really want to maintain the Olympic sports, we need more money. No one else has said, here's a plan. And that quote, let's have a look. You know what? I got pros and cons for this Super League. I want to save those for next week because I want to get to Caitlin Clark before the show is over. My final thought for now with the Super League is it's going to eventually happen. Does it start to evolve in 2027 if the ESPN ends the ACC media rights? basically destroying the ACC. Does it happen in 2031, like I mentioned earlier, 2036, if somehow, which would shock me, the ACC goes all the way to the end of their contract, their media rights contract, which I don't see happening? It's going to happen at some point. The question is, does it happen in a couple years? Does it take half a decade or a decade at the most? It's going to happen because that's where the money is, and money talks. So I will come back next week to the pros and cons of this Super League. But I want to get to Caitlin Clark. Okay, and real quick, I have another show that I do, the Carricker Chronicles. All right, you can check it out on YouTube. Just simply type in Carricker Chronicles. You can check out the website, carrickerchronicles.com, ladies and gentlemen. Carricker Chronicles on YouTube or carrickerchronicles.com. Let's get to Caitlin Clark. And let's tune in next week for the pros and cons of a Super League. So Caitlin Clark was drafted #1 overall, WNBA draft by the Indiana Fever. She signed a 4-year rookie contract. Okay. In year 1, she's going to make a little over $76,000. Year 2, just over $78,000. 2026, just over almost, but just under $86,000. In 2027, they have an option, but she's going to make $97.5, essentially, $1,000. Now, this is the best female basketball player on earth. I'm just going to say it. I know she hasn't done anything in the WNBA yet, so maybe I'm wrong, but she is, in my opinion. She made $3.1 million, according to NIL databases from On3. Clark has already made $3.1 million from NIL, the fourth most of any college athlete. The only athletes earning more across the country in any sport are LeBron James' son, Bronny. I was going to ask why, but we know why he made that much. Deion Sanders' son, Shooter, okay, and LSU gymnast and social media influencer, Livy Dune. I'll never forget when she said she was going to go to the WNBA. I remember thinking, she's going to take a pay cut. I did not realize how much that pay cut was. And I saw a tweet, and I forget who it was, but the guy goes, she's not even making practice squad money, NFL practice squad money. Now, let's be clear. These are first world problems, but it's all about the revenue you bring in. Supply and demand. Revenue you bring in, you should be compensated fairly for. It ain't even close. The women's Final Four or national championship game had 4 million more viewers than the men's national championship game. I went through all these numbers last week, so I'm not going to go through them all again. Women's college basketball right now is probably more popular than men's college basketball, and it's going to translate to the WNBA with Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, and it is starting to become one of the most watched sports on planet Earth. She should be getting paid more. Teachers should be getting paid more. There's other people who should be getting paid more. I could argue certain jobs should get paid less. Maybe mine. I won't throw that out there. All right. So I went up and I looked. Practice squad salaries in the NFL. Keep in mind what I mentioned that Caitlin's making per year. Practice squad rookie makes $12,000 per week in an 18-week NFL season. They're going to make $216,000. Okay. The minimum salary for an active NFL player rose to $705,000 in 2022. This year, the minimum salary for an NFL player is $750,000, $750,000. This amount applies exclusively to NFL rookies during their debut season. Practice squad versus active roster players. Okay, is what I'm talking about. As they advance, the minimum rises to $870,000 and $940,000 by their third year in the NFL. All right, so Caitlin is going to make, on average, a little over $80,000 a year. A practice squad player in the NFL who is busting their butt trying to earn their way, all due respect, is going to make $216,000 a year. It's almost 3 times as much. That's a rookie, by the way, in his first year, and it only goes up from there. An active roster player is going to make over $700,000, whether they play it or just a backup. I don't want to say just a backup because they're trying to earn their way too. My point is simply this. That don't make no sense. I got love for everybody who's trying to make it, no matter what the job is, WNBA, NFL, carpenter, plumber, all due respect. But the more eyeballs you bring, the more revenue that's made, the more you should be paid. It's that simple. So this person was right. She's not even going to touch what a practice squad player is going to make in the NFL, or a minimum salary first, second, or third year player who's on the active roster, which is a gargantuan difference income made to a practice roster player. Now, I will say this. I'm just going to throw this out there randomly. I've seen 10-year vets who are making league minimum, and I don't know what that is now. I didn't look it up, but I've seen them get cut because their league minimum is so high. It's almost cheap. It's way cheaper for NFL teams to keep on a rookie or a second-year player who's not as good of a player. I've seen 10, 12-year NFL vets be unemployed because the NFL minimum just keeps increasing and it makes them expendable. Just something that maybe should be looked at down the road. Random sidebar. The reason this is the way it is because historically WNBA games don't get high ratings. So if fans start to show up and show out in support of these players, this needs to be changed quickly. And the length of the contract for Caitlin is crazy too. Well, you have the leverage. Make it a 2 or 3 year contract so it can get changed quicker. Get back to that negotiation table quicker. I will say this. 2 final thoughts. First world problems, but here are my 2 final thoughts. And I mentioned this before. Other WNBA players, you need to be thanking Caitlin Clark for the eyeballs she's about to bring and over time the money you're about to make. You're great players. Nothing but respect. But she's gotten so much hate from certain players, it's surprising to me. Whether you like her or not, there's going to be more money made. Her, Angel Reese, yourself included. You should all be thanking each other instead of, let's keep it positive, a little less negative, at least the things that are catching headlines. The other thing I will say to Caitlin is there is no limit on what you can make in your marketing. Okay? That marketing money, that's where she can make her real money. All right. Thank you for joining me, ladies and gentlemen. I'll see you next week. This has been the Big Ten Show. I'm your host, Adam Carricker. Have a phenomenal rest of your week.
Go Hog Wild Pit Barbecue.
It's $5.99 barbecue time. Hurry to Hog Wild for a complete barbecue meal that's only $5.99. Get a 1-meat sandwich loaded with our award-winning barbecue, plus your choice of a classic side and drink for just $5.99. Upgrade your sandwich to beef brisket for just $1 more. Join us for lunch or dinner in Lincoln at 3210 Cornhusker Highway. Order online at GoHogWild.com.
But don't be late, we close at 8.
Perch Merch is your one-stop shop for all your printing and promotional needs.